Trevisan, thank you for being with us here with the Wayamo Foundation in Pretoria, South Africa, and for the work that you have done during our events here. I would like to begin by asking you to tell us a little bit about your work for Legal Action Worldwide.
So I work as a legal advisor at Legal Action Worldwide. My organization is an international firm that is specialized in strategic litigation, meaning promoting proceedings that have an impact for a wider audience and possibly for the development of international law. My role specifically is to design and promote specific legal action, either being criminal, civil, or administrative. And I work closely with national partner lawyer, judges, prosecutor, and most importantly with victims who provide evidence in court.
So could I ask you then to elaborate on just how important open source investigations, open source intelligence, open source information is to the preparation of cases, including through mechanisms like the exercise of universal jurisdiction?
It's often been said that open source investigation is the future of transnational litigation, but actually is the present. Nowadays, more and more courts and domestic or international level, they are using open source materials such as social media and satellite images to conduct, for example, criminal investigation. And this is crucially important in contexts where we cannot get access to the territory where the crimes have been committed because, for example, there is an armed conflict going on. So you don't want to get involved in this situation. So it's really fundamental, this kind of evidence. And what we have done here with Wayamo is to persuade judges that this kind of type of evidence can be used in court and have been used in court more and more in a convincing and persuasive manner.
I think you've already alluded to this, but is it really possible to use open source information alone? In other words, can cases be built with only open source information? Is it a panacea, or is it important to combine it with other types of expertise or evidence?
Yeah, OSINT represents a revolution in international criminal proceedings, but cannot solve all the problems that are posed by criminal proceedings. So there, in many situations where we work, for example, in the context of Sri Lanka, we work on domestic violence. In the context of South Sudan, we work on crimes related to sexual violence. So in those cases, for example, it's difficult to prove the elements of the crime through this open, publicly available information because these crimes have been committed in indoor environment, in closed environment. So that's also the case when it comes to prosecuting cases of torture. The available information maybe is limited. So what is done usually is to cross-corroborate or triangulate OSINT with other types of evidence, which are traditionally the one most appreciated by judges. So witness testimony or forensic analysis in order to conclude a legal proceedings, let's say.
So what's the current state of play with respect to national authorities and the admissibility of open source evidence in national courts, whether they're exercising universal jurisdiction in their regular day-to-day operations or perhaps with respect to international crimes being prosecuted that happen on that territory? Who's leading in this space, and what are some of the best practices that you see?
So let's say that this is a uncharted territory, is a new frontier for legal proceedings because the code of procedure, civil and criminal code of procedure, were mostly designed and written down in a time where we didn't have internet, we didn't have digital evidence. So we're fought for documentary evidence, right? At best, even for photos and sometimes for videos, but not certainly for a social media post or for satellite images. So what we are pushing for is to interpret those legislation in an innovative way, in the sense that as much as prosecutor, defense lawyers, or judges are now familiar with the idea of forensic evidence being given by an expert in medical records, the same should be applied also for OSINT material. So what we do is that we produce in court a usually brief report conducted by a third expert, independent expert, who may be an author at Bellingcat, who has already published many investigations online, whose authoritative knowledge is then acknowledged by the court, and who can provide an analysis of this material and showing step by step what the methodology has been taken in the analysis of this evidence.
We know that the internet is producing a lot of information and therefore evidence, including of mass atrocities. We also know that the internet is a source of tremendous amounts of misinformation, disinformation. And so with the advent of things like very sophisticated artificial intelligence programs and deep fakes, how can we ensure that evidence of international crimes is properly authenticated so that lawyers can feel confident that they're bringing real, solid evidence to court?
This is a question that comes again and again when we give this kind of trainings, because judges and prosecutors and lawyers are very much worried when they see videos online of President of the United States or other public figure giving speeches that they haven't never given. So it's hard to believe those words have been given by them. And in fact, they are fake news. They have been artificially made by softwares. And so this is certainly something that is concerning for the public opinion, and even more for judges whose responsibility is to put people in jail sometimes, or to convict people and issue damages, for example. However, what has been discussed with the judges during the training is that the courts, since they have been established back in the history of humanity, you may say, they have been, since their foundation, they have been familiar with the concept of forged documents. So there have been ways to counter forgery using techniques that are called verification techniques. So in order to understand whether a document is reliable, credible, and authentic, those techniques that are now very sophisticated when it comes to documents can now be applied with different tools also to video content, for example, or satellite images. So, for example, for fake news or deep fake, for a video produced with AI, there are both IT techniques, tools that can understand whether the file, the characteristic of the file is forged or not, but also by analyzing the source, the content, the elements, the details that are present in the picture, in the footage, would lead to almost 100% reliable conclusion whether this is the result of artificial intelligence or not. So what we discuss with the judges is that we are pretty optimistic that there can be ways to counter those fake news, even in legal proceedings.